Okay, this is the last section of chapter 4, and it is pretty lengthy, 6 pages. So I'm gonna try to cut this short here. Okay, so there are 3 ways to round numbers. You can either round up, round down, or round to the nearest. So it might say like round to the nearest 10th, 1000th, 100th, whatever. But we're going to focus on rounding up and rounding down. So I don't even know what to cut out here. All right, I'm just going to go with it. So number 2, I need to write down the 2 integers that bound the given number on the number line. So actually, let me cross off some of these maybe. Let's see, let's cross off this one. I'm just totally picking, and then we'll do this one and this one. We'll stick with 3, which means I have to cross off C, E, and B on 4 and 7 as well. Okay, there we go. So I want to name the 2 integers that bound the given number on the number line. That just means what 2 numbers is this number in between. So 2.99 between 2 and 3. Well, this is just 4. And I don't want to say 3 and 5. I want to say 4 and 4. Okay, negative 3/4. So that's between -1 and 0. So round down means to find the lower bound integer. So that means that if I'm going to round down, I am using the numbers that I wrote down first because those numbers are on the left. If I'm rounding down, I'm looking at the numbers on the left, if I wrote them in order. So 2.99, I'm going to round it down to 2. 4, I'm going to round it down to 4. And negative 3/4, I'm going to round it down to -1. All right, I'm going to cross off number 5. That's just confusing whenever I talk about that. Okay, round up means to find the upper bound integer. So up here, I'm looking at the numbers on the right because those are the bigger. They're on the upper end of the number line, which is if they're on the right. So if I'm going to round 2.99 up, I'm going to round it up 3. 4 is just 4, and I'm going to round negative 3/4 up to 0. And I'm going to cross off number 8. Because again, whenever I write that down, it's just confusing. Not a big deal. Okay, now we're going to talk about some symbols for round down. There are 3 symbols for round down, and there's only 1 for round up. So round down, it could look like that. It could just be brackets, or it could look like that. And then round up looks like that. So it's just this one flipped. This is the only one that means round up. All right, now there are names that mean round up and round down. So round down would be floor, or the greatest integer function, which is weird because if you're rounding down, you wouldn't think of greatest. So I don't like that one. Yes, I wrote it down, but that's fine. So if round down would be floor, round up would be ceiling. But we typically say just round up, round down. But those are names for them. Okay, so let's evaluate now. And I'm going to cross off some of these. Let's see, C, G, It's B, D, and J. There we go. Okay, so first I have to look to see what symbol we have to determine if it's round up or round down. So on A, that means round up. I'm sorry, no, it means to round down. So the first thing I like to do is, it might be helpful to write down the two numbers that number is in between. It's between 2 and 3. So if I'm going to round down, my answer is 2. Okay, negative 1.9. That number is in between negative 2 and negative 1. Again, that symbol means to round down. So my answer is negative 2. Okay, F, I have 2.3. That number is in between 2 and 3. That symbol means to round up. I'm going to round up to 3. Okay, on H, I just have an integer already. So whether I'm rounding it up or rounding it down, it's still just going to be that number regardless. Okay, negative 3.4, that's between negative 4 and negative 3. Since I'm rounding up, my answer is negative 3. All right, this one means to round down. And so let's see, this would be between negative 3 and negative 2. And since I'm rounding down, it's negative 3. And then the last one, this number is between 0 and 1. And again, I'm rounding down, so 0 would be my answer. All right, so if you're not sure what symbol it means or what it stands for, remember there's only one for round up. This is the only one that means round up. So if it doesn't look like that, then you need to round down. All right, now we're going to graph. So this one's round down. So regardless if it's round down or round up, you always want to start at 0, 0. And then you're going to put points on the diagonal. Because if I'm going to round down 1, it's still going to be 1. If I want to round down 2, it's still going to be 2. So same thing over here. I start at 0, 0, put points on the diagonal, and then round up. If I want to round up 1, it's 1. If I want to round up 2, it's 2. So integers are just the integers. And I'm putting quite a few on here. You don't have to put all those on there. Okay, now the next thing you want to do is pay attention to the symbol. So round down means I'm rounding the numbers in between. For example, any number between 2 and 3, if I want to round it down, then I want the number on the left. So all these points that are shaded in, those are the ones that are going to be on the left. The one on the right isn't included. So if I go to the right, that number or that point is going to be an open circle. And then I'm going to do little dots. That means it keeps on going. Usually we do arrows on graphs, but I can't draw arrows because it doesn't look like anything that we've seen before. Okay, this time we're rounding up. So if I look at something like I, this time if I'm rounding up, I want the number on the right. So all these points are the numbers I want. They're on the right. The number on the left is not included. So I'm going to go to the left and do open dots. And then I can't do arrows, I'm just going to do little dots. Okay, so rounding up and rounding down functions, they are called step functions because they look like steps. All right, moving on to page 3. All right, the first thing I want to do is now I'm going to move my origin. So I'm adding numbers now. So on 16, I'm going to go to the right 3. So 1, 2, 3. Once I find the new origin, I just put points on the diagonal. And you can do just 3. 3 is fine. You don't have to do any more than that unless you want to. Okay, now it's round down. So that means the points that are closed in are on the left. The ones that are open are going to be the ones on the right. So there's 16. All right, 17, this means to go down 3. So I'm going to go down 3. And then this negative means instead of me putting points going up, I'm going to put points going down. And then it's still round down. So the closed points are going to be on the left. The open points are going to be on the right. And then I just put my dots to show that it keeps on going. All right, 18, I'm going to go to the right one up 2. That's my new starting point. So once I get my starting point, I put points on the diagonal. And this time it's round up. So this time the closed points are the ones that I want to keep on the right. And then the ones on the left are the ones that are going to be open. And then it keeps on going. All right, and then finally 19, I'm going to go to the left 2, up 3. Put points on the diagonal. And it's round up, so the points that are closed are on the right. So the open points are going to be the ones on the left. Okay, so that is how you graph step functions. So now we're going to switch gears and go to piecewise functions. Piecewise functions just means I have 2 or more pieces. So if you look at this particular problem, I have 2 different equations. And this tells you which one to use. So on this one I have -1. So since my x value is less than 0, I'm going to use this one. So if I put -1 in for x and then subtract 1, I get -2. I'm going to cross off C and D. Okay, this one is 1. So since my x value is greater than 0, I'm going to use this one. So 2 times 1 plus 1 will give me 3. All right, that's page 3. All right, so I can cross off a lot of things on this page. I'm going to cross off, let's see, B and D. And then down here I will cross off C, and then I'm going to cross off all of 24. Okay, so this is the same thing on the other page. So I have 2 equations here, and this tells you which one to use. So I have 0. So 0 is greater than -1, so I'm going to use this one. So 0 squared minus 2, that's going to give you -2. -1, I'm still going to use the bottom one because -1 isn't greater than, but it is equal to -1. So I'm going to use the bottom one as well. So -1 squared minus 2, that gives me 1 minus 2, which turns out to be -1. So -1 is my final answer. Okay, now these two look a little different, so I'm going to kind of do the same thing I did before, but I'm going to do it twice. And you want to work inside out. So first I'm going to do that. So since my x value is 1, I'm going to use the top one because 1 is less than 2. So if I put 1 there, I get 3 times 1 plus 4, that's going to be 7. So this becomes 7. And now I'm going to do f of 7. So I'm substituting it twice. Now I'm going to use the bottom one because 7 is greater than 2. So I'm going to do 7 squared plus 4 times 7 plus 2. 49 plus 28 plus 2, that turns out to be 79. So 79 is my final answer. Okay, let's look at B. So first I'm going to do the inside. So since this is -1, I'm going to use the bottom one. So 3 times -1 is -3 plus 4 is 1. That becomes 1. Now I'm going to do f of 1. Well, 1 is still less than 2, so I'm going to use the top one again. So 3 times 1 plus 4 turns out to be 7. All right, so I'm not doing E, and I'm not doing 24, so that brings us to page 5. And actually, if I turn it over to page 6, I'm gonna not do 29 or 30. And I probably won't do, I'm not gonna do 25 either. Okay, so when you graph piecewise functions, you probably need a highlighter probably. Okay, I'm gonna get a highlighter. So what I want to do is I want to look at this right here. This is where these two things are going to come together. So on the x-axis, I'm going to go over to -1. I'm going to draw my line there. This is kind of like where they're going to be pieced together. All right, so I'm going to graph this first. Now this is still my new origin. I'm still going to start from here. So I'm going to go to the left 1, up 2. Left 1, up 2. I'm going to put a point there. And it can be closed on this line because it can also be equal to that x value. Now this is going to be a V-graph. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, with my pencil, because I'm going to have to do some erasing here, I'm going to draw in my V-graph, or I'm going to put points rather. But I don't want the entire V-graph. I either only want the left side of the V-graph or the right side. So since this is less than and it's pointing to the left, I just want the left side of this V-graph. So I only want that side. So I don't need these points anymore. I only want the left side of my V-graph. All right, now I'm going to graph this one. So I'm going to go back to my original origin. I'm going to go to the left 1, up 2. Well, I already have a point there. Now this means it would be open, but since it's closed already, it's going to stay closed. And now I'm going to plot my points for a parabola. Okay, so there are my points for my parabola, but I don't want all these points. This time it's greater than -1, so I only want the points on the right side. So I can erase this one. And this is what that would look like. So the left side's a V-graph and the right side is a parabola. All right, let's look at 27. This time we have 3 different things going on. And if I look at this, looks like I have a -2 and a +2. So I'm going to draw in 2 lines here. This is where my graphs are going to come together. But this is still my origin. All right, so this one I'm going to go to the left 2. So from here I'm going to go to the left 2. And since that has a line underneath it, I'm going to close it in. And then I want my V-graph. All right, but I don't want this entire V-graph. Looks like since it's less than, I only want the left side. So I'm going to get rid of these over here. Okay, I'm going to do the middle one last because we haven't really talked about that. Okay, this one is going to be a line. So back to here. This means I'm going to go down 2 because it's not grouped with x. I'm going to go down 2. My slope is 1. Now once I get to this line, I have to decide if it's going to be open or closed. Since there's a line underneath it, it's going to be closed. Okay, and I don't want this entire line. I don't want points over here and above it, like on the left and on the right. It's either one or the other. So I got to look at my symbol. It's greater than, so I only want to the right of that line. Greater than means the right. Less than means you're looking at the left. All right, now I got the middle. Now I don't think we've done this before. You should have done it in geometry, but I don't know. This is a semicircle. So this 4 is the radius squared, which means the radius is 2. So I'm gonna go to the right 2, to the left 2, and up 2. And these are not closed, but since they're closed already, they're gonna stay closed. This one can be closed as well because it's not on one of these lines. It's either gonna be open or closed if it's on these lines. So overall, that's what your graph is going to look like. All right, we got one more over on the back. All right, so first I'm going to draw in my vertical line. So I'm going to go over to 2, draw that in. That's where my graphs are going to come together. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to go to the right 1, up 1 from this origin. I'm going to use my pencil. To the right 1, up 1. And it's going to be a parabola. Okay, and I have to decide if I want the points to the right of this line or to the left of it. Since it's less than, I want the ones on the left. And since there's a line there, this point should in fact be closed since I already have that, so that's good. So I want all of that, but I don't want that one. Okay, now I'm going to graph this one. I'm going to go to the right 2, up 3 from here. So to the right 2, up 3. Now, this time the points up here, they don't meet. So since they don't meet, this is open now because it tells me this is open. This one's only going to be closed if it met with this one that's already closed. If it's by itself and there's not a line there, it's going to be open. And then it's going to be an upside down V graph. And it looks like, I mean, I could put as many points as I want, really. So now I have to decide if I want the points to the left of this line or to the right of it. Since it's greater than, I want the ones to the right of it. So I can erase the ones that I put on the left. So sometimes these 2 points will meet like they've done on the previous page, and sometimes they won't. If they don't, then one might be closed, one might be open. They might be closed, I don't know, it just depends. So the only time that the point's going to be open on this line is if they don't meet and there's not a line underneath it. So hopefully I wasn't too confusing. I feel like I didn't explain it very well, but we'll see. So we did step functions and piecewise functions. You will need graph paper to do your assignment.